Hello. Good morning. It's 9:45. Happy Friday. I'm TK and this is Coach on the Rocks. Lovely to see you again. Thank you for all your comments and messages after yesterday's stream. Always makes me, quite happy and proud that, you're there, you enjoy the streams and you find the topics we're discussing important. Um, Today is Friday, and hopefully most of you remember that we do have a podcast. And today is the first episode of the second season. And on Fridays, I usually discuss our podcast episodes. So, the first episode of the second season, we have a guest, and we will have quite a few wonderful guests, as you might have seen on our socials. And today it's Magdalene Usikaro. She is the CEO of a wonderful charity, Music Relief. Her profile is linked. And the conversation was quite something. We definitely enjoyed it and hope that you will also enjoy listening to it. Just find Leading with Agility on your favorite podcast player. Now, what we've talked about is helping young people from disadvantaged backgrounds, which is what her charity does, and helping them to become leaders. And what does it mean to be a leader in these communities? I think like what I've talked about yesterday, I've talked a lot about choice, and I've talked about a lot of you, my listeners, myself, having the ability to choose and make the right choices. Now, the thing is, white guy, not from a privileged background whatsoever, and, an immigrant too, but still, reasonably well educated, speak the language, and have glasses and beard. So I definitely can be considered privileged. And I had the ability to make the choices I wanted to make. And many of you can make these choices. But many of you are in situations where you're faced with a difficult situation in life. Or some of you might come from a background that did not give you choices. Young people that Magdalene works with, are not being offered the same choices many of you, my dear listeners and viewers, are being offered. And I'm sure you're also working with people that come from backgrounds that didn't offer them many choices, and it wasn't easy to get where they got to. And they got to through, people like Magdalene really helping. But the important thing is, when we've been talking to Magdalene, and I've been reflecting on that, is how important it is to help, but also from my perspective, and maybe the perspective of some of you listeners, thinking about where a certain person came from, what shaped them. And it's important not to consider everyone to be in a position that they could make the choices you have made, that they always have the freedom to make the choices, even if they come from a background that made it slightly easy for them. Maybe they need to care for a loved one that's in a difficult position, a sick child, elderly parents. Maybe they struggle with an illness in the family, or maybe there's something they have themselves. Maybe their background was difficult, even though they might not look like it. I'm sorry to say this because, unfortunately, the background is associated with looks. Your skin color still makes a difference for many people. It's a huge shame, but it is very unfortunate. But sometimes, even if you think, oh, he looks like he comes from a great background, he might be hiding something, or there might be something that might not have permitted him to make choices. Same for people that, you might think that they come from a background of poverty, they're from the underprivileged communities, but, they might be treated unfairly if you think they do. I think it's important to consider the fact that we know so little about the people around us that we're working with, even if we're so close to them. Only through time you will discover what has shaped these people and who they are. And I think as much as, all the self-help books and Tony Robbins's of the world tell you that you can all be a giant within, and I'm not criticizing, I think, it's important to be motivated. I don't mind, people walking on calls or whatever. I think, I actually don't mind. What I think is important is also to understand where we came from and what was the road that has shaped us. No, don't neglect that. It always will have a huge bearing on us. Yes, of course, we will be able to change, but we have to acknowledge that for many of us, the journey will be quite different, and it will be different for all of us. Can't treat everyone the same. And I think it's just important to have some empathy, because sometimes, and actually oftentimes, it's very important and difficult for these people actually to talk about these things, right? They might want to get away from it. Maybe an abusive family, maybe the abusive neighborhood, and being bullied. Not easy things to talk about, whatever they might be. Still, I, as a coach and as a leadership coach, believe that everyone within them has the capability. As Tony Robbins says, you can become a giant. Might be harder for some, but what is important is, if we have the strength ourselves to have the unyielding belief that everyone can be their best. And actually, everyone's best is actually very good. And I do hope that all of you have the situation when you can reach that. And also, have a great Friday and possibly an amazing weekend. I'll see you back on Monday. Have a great one. And do listen to the podcast with Magdalene. I think it will give you an interesting perspective, as it gave me. Bye bye. Have a nice one. Cheers.